This week, luxury brands and cheap domains, software-defined everything, automate all of the things, organizations still running outdated software, cloud lenses. My autocorrect was having a field day with that word. Cloud lenses. Duo loves McAfee. Our topic this week is building an internal penetration testing team. All that and more on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. Practice field, I had to do that to the door, and then once the wind caught it, I flew outside the door.
I call that a programmer's workout.
Yes, that is a programmer's workout.
I was at RSA. I got out. I have seen things. I've seen horrible things.
LogRhythm's Netmon Freemium delivers real-time network visibility to quickly identify emerging threats in your IT environment. Netmon Freemium is a free commercial-grade network forensics and traffic analytics solution. You can use Netmon Freemium's powerful capabilities to search against all observed network traffic, identify abnormal traffic patterns and application usage, and quickly analyze full packet captures. Take the first step towards real-time network visibility. Visit logRhythm.com/freemium to learn more and download it today. Are you worried about PCI compliance? Does your development team understand or care about security? Are you ready to face a breach of your customer sensitive data? See the worst that can happen before it does. Black Hills Information Security can help you help management see the future. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com to find out how a web application penetration test can mitigate the risk before you go live. IT Pro TV, an easy, entertaining approach to online IT training. Stream over 2,000 hours of up-to-date, high-quality video content live and on demand. Premium annual memberships include all video content as well as access to virtual labs and the Q&A forums. You'd pay $85.70 a month or $857 per year, but we have a special offer for our listeners. For a free 7-day trial and 30% off the lifetime of your active subscription, visit itpro.tv/enterprise security and use the code ES30. Welcome to episode 48 of Enterprise Security Weekly. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, joined on the lines via Skype by Mr. John Strand. John, welcome to the show.
How are you doing, sir? Glad to be here. It's kind of a bit of an exhausting week, and I think that we noticed that a little bit in the stories for this week as well.
Yeah, there was not much in the stories this week. I'm experimenting with containers, which has been a lot of fun. So you'll see some segments. I've got some ideas in my head for content already, as I'm still in the learning process. There's a lot to learn there. There's a pretty big learning curve. Someone said for the old crusty, traditional IT folks like ourselves, John, the learning curve is pretty great.
Well, what I also think is interesting about Docker is there's a lot of companies that believe that it's more secure because they don't have as many vulnerabilities and there aren't as many plugins and Nessus and Expos and things like that. I just think a lot of that is based on the fact that it hasn't quite got the the Tavist eye watching it or security researchers starting to tear into it yet. But I think, we were talking about before, it's kind of terrifying what you can actually do with it. And what was it you said about developers and Dockers? I thought that was funny. I can't remember.
Well, yeah. Well, one of my things I'm thinking of is as I go through the process of, building containers and getting my application running, I can do all that as a developer, but I'm also now a sysadmin, right? Because I'm building either applications or whole Linux systems inside of a container. And I'm like, this is like sysadmin stuff the developer's doing. I'm like, that's never a good combination, just so you know.
No, it's never a good idea at all. And but I think that developers like that. They feel like they have more control. They don't have to go to a systems administrator all the time to try to get things set up. But man, whenever you have a system go down, you got to call the developer. It's like, the Docker container's down. Can you restart it? It's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah. You know what I find interesting too, and you touched on this a little bit already, John, is when we talk about enterprise security like we do here on the show, you start to think about how well contained is that application. And I feel like VMware and a lot of the other virtualization technologies have gone through the paces of security researchers looking into being able to escape out And I just don't, if anyone's doing that research in security with containers to see how easy or difficult it is to escape out, there's lots of ways to make your container more containerized or less containerized. And I get, the app I'm working with is an internal app. I'm not exposing it to the internet just yet. But I there's like paths that I could go down, and I'm like, if I go down that path, is it going to like make it less secure? And how much is that less secure? So if anyone's doing that research, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, it'd be very, very cool stuff. And we've had some people on the show in the past that I'm sure would know, but I think it's one of those areas that needs to be looked at in a lot more detail from the security community.
Absolutely. Let's see. We wanted to start with talking about how Farsight and Domain Tools. Domain Tools is a relatively new sponsor to the Security Weekly Network. But before we talk about them, I just want to run through a couple of quick announcements before I forget. Thank you, producers in my head. The first B-Sides in Uganda. B-Sides Kampala is going to be held October 14th through the 15th. CFP is open until July 15th of this year. Some topics of interest include network security, web application security, innovative attack and defense strategies, malware analysis, robotics. Bonus if you bring your own robot as well. You can find out more at bsideskampala.com. Also, check out Wild West Hackin' Fest. The fest is put on by Red Team specialists from Black Hills Information Security, John Strand being one of them. Join us on October 27th and 28th for hands-on hardware hacking and talks by famous InfoSecers like Dave Kennedy, Deviant, Egypt, Chris Nickerson, Chris Gates, Mike Poore, Subt, and more. Visit wildwesthackinfest.com, HACKINfest.com. All righty. John, I wanted to jump into this first story, which you said was interesting. Farsight and Domain Tools partnered together to analyze luxury brands and the domains behind them. It's kind of interesting. We've actually done segments on luxury brands on the Stogie Geeks or Cigar Podcast side of the house because there's lots of like similarities, right? Like people make like really high-end cutters and lighters for your cigars because cigars are somewhat of a luxury item. I think it was Bentley made a car that had a humidor built into the car inside of it. So, I mean, talk about your ultimate like luxury item. That's by far the most humidor in existence, like $500,000 for the car. And bonus, you get a humidor. So luxury.
You have two of those, so.
Yeah, well, it depends on which day of the week it is and which one I like to drive. But luxury brands, it's a low volume, like kind of high margin kind of thing going on. And it's all about the brand and the equity that you have in the brand that really, I think, drives a luxury item. So when I was interested to hear that Farsight and Domain Tools kind of uncovered that there is a whole ton of abuse going on in this area in terms of domains. So they looked at watches, clothing, handbags, accessories. They're using historical passive DNS and Domain Tools Whois and domain profile data. And they're revealing how cybercriminals are exploiting DNS to commit fraud using cheap domains and other techniques to lure unsuspecting consumers to buy knockoff luxury goods. So a couple of statistics that I thought were interesting. A given brand could have 100,000 or more possible domain names for each of its properties. That's just like, how do you deal with that, right? If you're the luxury brand company, how do you deal with that? Or
exactly how many I'm sure the lawyers are like, yeah, just have us start writing cease and desist letters at thousands of dollars a pop. This seems like a good solution.
Mm-hmm. The other one was thousands of domains exist using the company's trademark names. Hundreds of domains found with terms such as cheap and fake. I mean, shouldn't that be a note to the consumer? Like, hey, cheaprolexes.com. Look at my new Rolex. It's awesome, right? But I think that, when people buy some of these knockoff brands, they're not really looking to buy the real thing. They're looking to buy a knockoff, to fake it, essentially. So retail outlets suffer from this as well. Brand infringement domains have wide distribution across top-level domains, but .com dominates. Brand infringement domains appear to have relatively low rates of malware, phishing, and spam. Interesting.
And that would make sense. They're trying to sell you crap.
Right.
I mean,
that's how they're making their money.
That's how they're making their money, and they could probably make more money than than the guys from WannaCry did doing it this way. But it's interesting. I think that this kind of highlights how there's a lot associated with computer security that we generally don't think of. Like this type of brand infringement, most security professionals don't think about it because it doesn't involve patching or AV or IDS or IPS.
Or as the article, it doesn't involve malware or phishing or spam.
At all.
Yeah.
So a lot of us aren't interested. But I think it's one of those areas, if you are in a specific like market vertical, you got to have some idea what types of attacks exist. Like remember Allison coming on and talking about booters and how there's a whole market for people that are just DOSing other people that are playing video games, generally ignored by most of the security community, but it's still a valid security concern nonetheless. So I like these types of edge cases, these little weird things that we just tend to forget about in the general open security community.
Yeah, and I think as an enterprise and us as security professionals, we tend to focus on some of the domain stuff that I know Endgame wrote about last year, where they talked about, those like one-off character domains. And their goal in uncovering these domains was, the goal of the attackers was to steal your credentials. So that, of course, gets the attention of the enterprise security team, us as security professionals, and we investigate and we come up with measures to mitigate the risk in that situation. But we don't often think about it, as John, you're pointing out, like the business side of it. Like, what if our brand is the thing that's being scammed? Essentially, this is a scam, right? How do we deal with that? Especially, I didn't know the problem was that large, where you could have 100 or 100,000 possible domain names. I wouldn't want to be in that position.
Yeah.
Some of the other stories this week: Juniper Networks open software defined security ecosystem. I have to say, this has the best graphic, John. Did you look at the graphic? It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I don't know what it means.
Oh, it just looks good. I want it to be a patch or on a shirt.
Yeah.
It's so cool looking. I don't know what it actually means.
I don't either.
It looks good.
There's clouds in there. I know that's important.
Someone was in the zone this day.
Some graphic artist spent many hours creating this, and I'm not sure for what benefit, because I still don't know in how my security program benefits from software-defined secure networking.
Well, and I could just see like the CEO of Juniper being like, you know what I need? I need a graphic that has all the products and crap we sell, and just that graphic, and make it look cool. And whoever did this came through.
Well, and they did give a brief announcement about what they are actually including as features, additional features. They're compatible with Cisco. The platform can now automatically apply security updates to NSX network virtualization from VMware. On the public cloud front, IT organizations can now manage Juniper Networks firewalls deployed on Microsoft Azure clouds.
And it's also kind of insane. Did you read the last paragraph of it?
I don't think I didn't get much past I didn't get past the graphic. I started the graphic for a while and I had to move on.
It's like hypnotic. It's like conventional wisdom holds that benefiting from software-defined networks requires IT organizations to standardize on offerings from a single vendor, which is totally.
That's not true. They said that they work with other vendors.
But here's their counter to that, Paul. But Ben Franklin once observed that those who would sacrifice liberty for security deserve neither. Given how particular IT security professionals can be about security technologies deployed inside their organization, that may be one debate that is best avoided. How the hell did they get into quoting Ben Franklin?
I don't know. How did they get that through? Someone threw that out, and then they snuck it back in. Like, I want to put my Ben Franklin reference in there.
Who wrote this? Mike? Yeah, Mike. Mike's, you, sir, are a genius.
A for the day for Mike for getting that in there, dude. That's awesome.
Does he have a Twitter account?
We need to send him a tweet.
I was doing this last week whenever we were talking about authors. So I was going, Mike Vizard Twitter. And it's a pretty weird name, so
it's funny though. But those are typically, having worked in marketing for a long time as the technical person, I would try and put like weird references like that into my technical documentation and marketing, materials and how-to guides, and it would like almost always get removed, right?
So I never could get these things through ever.
But Mike did.
Lost it.
Props
yeah,
to
Mike did. Mike is a genius. So I'm going to tweet out that you, sir, are a M-Vizard is a wizard. How's that? Is that catchy?
I don't
think that anybody ever uses that.
He's like, I got to include this graphic in there, but I got to somehow make up for this graphic. And he did. That's a good catch, John. Phantom.
Go ahead and keep going. I'm going to type this up real quick. You go on to the next one.
So Phantom announces the inaugural Security and Automation and Orchestration user conference. They're going to have some case studies highlighting unique use cases such as indicator enrichment, threat hunting, alert investigations, containment, and remediation, how-to tutorials on security automation and orchestration, including playbook and app development, end-user training, and reporting and best practices for SOC automation. And I know even to this day, people will see the word automation, and I know, John, you're already cringing because the word automation is in there. And that just makes us all cringe. And again, I think it goes back to the notion that we've all kind of come up through the ranks in technology, and we've been burned by shiny new technology, especially by trying to automate things. And I don't want this security automation orchestration to get that reputation still, because I think if you go into it knowing that it's people, processes, and technology that make a security program, or really any business operation or your business in general, it's that fundamental principle that makes you successful, at least one of them. And in security, we can't lose sight of that. And I think when we see automation, we are tainted by the AI and machine learning aspect that's going on today in security, and think, well, the vendors are just trying to replace me, right? They're trying to add this AI component with this automation component, and like, well, who needs security people anymore? That's not really what it's about. It's about automating and analyzing what you can on an automated basis, so it doesn't have to involve as many humans, so that you can focus on more important things that do require human intervention that you're not getting to, and be able to manage that process. I think it's more about getting better data to the right people and automating that process than it is about, well, I just installed this software, it sniffs traffic and it creates tickets and people just fix. Like, that's not what it's about.
And I think that a lot of times I think we're approaching it the wrong way. I think that we're looking at the same level of complexity, and we talked about this before with like event logs. We talked about it many, many, many times. I still think we're trying to watch absolutely everything, and we're trying to put some type of orchestration on top of watching absolutely everything. And I don't believe that that's quite the right answer. I think, and I'm hoping that conferences like this one will help tie that together to say, what we really need to do is take a good, long, hard look at what it is we're doing analysis on, and making a determination as to whether or not it's relevant to the actual attacks that we're seeing today, that attackers and pen testers are using. So I'm hoping that eventually we start moving in that way, but almost all of the time, it just seems everybody is trying to watch everything and create automation for absolutely everything. And we're trying, just like you said, we're trying to pull the security analyst out of the mix as much as possible. So as we've said many times on the show, again, look for tools that make you a better analyst, give you better information to make decisions, not do your job for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of security engineers and analysts, we're curious in nature, so we like to dig, right? We like to dig to try and find the things. What if the automation could do a lot of that digging for you based on what you tell it to dig for, and give you kind of like the summary of what happened, and automate that digging process? I mean, we love to TCP dump and look at all the traffic and pick out things, right? But it's all about automating that digging, I think, that can really help today. And it's a hot topic, and I hope to have more segments on this kind of stuff, which is why I wanted to make sure we mentioned it. Oh, so guess what? People don't patch their software, John.
What? Oh, God. You're talking about which one was this?
Well, Duo released a report, and Duo has a lot of technology and services out there. To be in a position to release a report like this, I like Duo as a company a lot. I don't think they're telling us anything new, and I've seen quite a few different articles with sort of the analysis of this Duo report. I would encourage people to go read the actual report, and not just kind of skim the headlines like we've done pretty much. But, they found, I covered on a different show, 54% of Adobe Flash was found to be out of date, according to their analysis. 31% of endpoints are running the latest OS compared to 15% in 2016. However, 13% of endpoints are browsing using unsupported version of Internet Explorer. Now, take what you will from those numbers. I thought and it isn't listed here in this article, but I thought the Adobe Flash number was probably more staggering than anything else. More than
that
half.
was the only thing that kind of hit me.
Yeah, right. Like the other stuff is stuff we hear all the time, but the more than half are still running outdated Flash. I mean, that could say a lot of things, right? Either Flash tends to be, it depends on how they're counting it, right? Flash tends to be kind of hidden. It's, of course, disabled by default in many modern browsers today, although I'm not sure which browsers they looked at. You know, in Internet Explorer, that certainly hasn't been the case for some time in multiple versions of Internet Explorer. But like in Chrome, it's Flash is there and it might be out of date, but it's not loading by default. I think Firefox has the same model. But that number just seemed kind of high to me, John.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it necessarily seemed high. I think that it was more of a confirmation, I think, which had been kind of creeping around for a long time that a lot of people have been suspicious of. But that would be the only thing in this that was interesting. The rest of it is just kind of your standard crap numbers that you would expect.
Yeah, like when I saw the headline, phishing is on the rise, that's in like every report ever published.
How can it get any more, right? I mean,
oh, boy. Let's see. Ixia extends Cloud Lens Private to deliver visibility into subscriber traffic for mobile operations. This is largely geared towards large mobile providers. The new solution delivers visibility into subscriber traffic, which enables mobile operators to assess QoS for critical voice over LTE and data services in software-defined networking and traditional networks.
In other words, products no one listening to the show will ever be able to afford.
Quite possibly. They're providing some insights and security into stuff that's used by like maybe a dozen major corporations.
But what's nice about it is it shows that there's at least some products out there and there's some visibility that they can actually get to try to secure these huge backhaul networks. But once again, that's not something a lot of people get to touch very often, but it's a very interesting world. We've done quite a few assessments on like ISPs and mobile providers, and it's interesting the hodgepodge network infrastructure of all this old technology and new technology. And the biggest problem that a lot of these people talk about is actually the profound lack of visibility. So it's a very cool product to go into that particular space. But
I mean, it sounds like a cool product. It says it allows mobile operators to correlate traffic for a subscriber for multiple data and control plane interfaces as they move within the mobile network and load balance traffic from millions of subscribers to multiple monitoring probes in a subscriber-aware fashion. I mean, that sounds cool.
It's also got the NSA seal of approval, so you can't argue with that.
That's right. In other news, Duo snapped up the exclusive in New Zealand for distribution rights for McAfee last month.
This is weird.
Isn't it?
Is this a different Duo?
It's a big headline. Yeah, I'm not sure what.
Is it a different New Zealand Duo? Is there a different company? Because I don't know if it's necessarily the same. Maybe it is.
I mean,
yeah, this is Duo New Zealand. This is not the authentication.
Oh, is this a different Duo?
This is a different Duo. This is just your standard IT distribution company. They are not. They have peppers on their website, dude.
Oh, okay. Different Duo.
Yeah, we just need to move. Oops. Yeah, different Duo, not the same.
Hey, we're just talking about brands and namespace overlapping.
I know that's because. Snap! It's almost like you planned that.
Friendly reminder to fully read and understand your articles before you put them into the show notes, and rely on people like John Strand to help make sense of it all. Two, your trademarks and patents are only valid in the U.S. unless you're filing in other countries for those trademarks and patents. And good luck in China getting a trademark or patent, right?
They're constantly being infringed upon by those Kiwis in New Zealand. So
it's a big problem.
It is a big problem.
Yeah, the stories worked, as John was telling me before the show. Not all that exhilarating this week.
So what happened? I mean, it would be easy for me just to be like, Paul, you screwed up. What the hell is this crap? But I know, because I looked too when I saw them. I'm like, there's got to be something better. They were just crap stories all the way through.
Pretty much. And a lot of the somewhat more interesting stuff was really fodder for startup. You know, some people getting funding and stuff was a lot of the headlines. I saw that all Netcope, something like that. Got $100 million in funding. That was like the big news. It was a slow week, is what we're saying.
Well, the article, I can't remember who it was released. There were some CAN bus articles that were released. There was also RiskSense released the description of the Eternal Blue exploit, but that's not Enterprise Security Weekly stuff.
No.
I mean, it's kind of like a really heavy Security Weekly week, but not a lot here at all.
Correct. Now, you said you had started researching Zealand Networks, who's a sponsor of Paul Security Weekly. I believe they're doing another segment tonight as well on Paul Security Weekly. What's your initial take on them, John?
So one of the things I thought was interesting is their website had a lot to talk about artificial intelligence, and that kind of attracts me to an article, and I want to jump in. But really, the big thing that I really like about Javelin, insofar as what they're saying, is the amount of deception technologies that once you're a bad guy and you try to move laterally off of a computer system, how they can tar pit that kind of lateral movement using tools like Bloodhound or PowerShell Empire to move around. So really, really cool concept. And the only reason why it kind of came to my attention today is I tweeted out, we do these goofy little tweets every once in a while, and I said, Active Directory without internal segmentation or host-based firewalling is like a super highway for a hacker. And someone's like, well, check out Javelin because it'll turn that into a tar pit, which I thought was really cool. And also, I think, Paul, Offensive Countermeasures is a company that's ran by tech geeks predominantly, right? I mean, you as the CEO are a tech geek. I'm, of course, the tech geek as well. And it's kind of neat to see another company that is clearly driven by more very highly technical, geeky people doing really, really awesome tech. More so than something that's just spewing out crap, garbage press releases.
Yeah, I got a chance to meet the founders. They served in the Israeli military, specifically doing security, computer security, information security stuff there. And then three of them formed together to make Zealand Networks. And I'm really impressed with their approach, and I think that they get lumped into like this AI and deception technology in marketing buzz. And here's a company that I think stands out from the rest. They actually do that stuff and do it well. And it's not even, while they do that deception, which I've seen firsthand, definitely makes an attacker's life like completely miserable. But they also do monitoring of your Active Directory. They're like, look, if you don't have these particular settings throughout your domain, they're really hard to keep track of because they can change, and they're really hard to just go find, like these dark corners, I think they call it. There's like 20-something different things that they'll just constantly monitor for. So you as the Active Directory administrator or team of administrators have some like sense of security that those dark corners that there might be a talk at DEF CON about, or we might mention as a story on the show, but like that's stuff that people are going to abuse to work their way around your Active Directory network in infrastructure. And Javelin's product just like tells you about it, and like, yeah, you should fix that. And that's really nothing that I've seen being in vulnerability management for as long as I was and still tracking it to this day. That's something that you just don't easily find with a lot of tools today. I don't think any other tools find it at the level that Javelin is finding it. So,
and there's a couple of things that I want to steal from their website to kind of add into ours as we're gearing up to release AI Hunt. It's pretty awesome. If you go all the way down to the bottom, they have features and benefits where they basically talk about all the cool things and what the immediate benefits are to an organization. So, for me, if I was a CIO, CEO, CTO, I would definitely want to look at this just based on their website and what they have, and of course what they've done on Security Weekly with some really cool segments in that respect. So I'd say watch this company. This is probably one of those companies that's going to end up bought here shortly and disappear.
What I found interesting, John, and I think it's very similar to some of the methodologies and strategies that you and I have talked about, is putting a lot of effort and reliance on endpoint security doesn't always pan out. And I mean, you do whole studies how you're bypassing endpoint security products. And don't get me wrong, I mean, sure, run one, right? But at the end of the day, and this is our philosophy, right? The attacker's going to get by that. And then, like, what do you have? What do you do? And the first thing they're going to try and do is start to move laterally or collect credentials to move laterally. And Javelin's tool is able to detect that in Active Directory. And I'm like, that's a win. So I don't have to really go crazy trying to get every single attack vector and every single piece of malware caught by endpoint. I can, just monitor what happens after the fact. And they're essentially, like you said, stuck in a tar pit at that point. So,
yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that was really cool. All right. Well, along that line, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and talk about building an internal penetration testing team. Stay tuned.